Hi everyone, welcome to 12 Petals Fireside Chat. I'm Christina, and today we're talking about this title, You Don't Have to Be. And we're super excited to have Miki, Nicole, and Chloe with us today. So just a little background on our speakers for today. Miki Yamanaka is a New York-based pianist from Kobe, Japan. She moved to New York City in 2012 and has studied piano with Jason Lindner, Jeb Patton, Fred Hersch, and organ with Yahel and Larry Goldings. In 2015, she was one of the 3 pianists selected to participate in Betty Carter's Jazz Ahead, an intensive composition residency at the Kennedy Center. She earned her Master of Music degree from Queens College, receiving the Sir Roland Hanna Award. She holds residencies at the Smalls and Mezzrow jazz clubs in New York City and hosted a week-long tribute to Horace Silver in 2016 and presented her own music in 2017 and 2019 at Dizzy's Club, Coca-Cola. She's the current pianist in the Philip Harper Quintet and Roxy Coss Quintet and the Antonio Hart Group. Miki recorded a mini album called Songs Without Lyrics in 2012, featuring Lawrence Lowe Leathers, Tivon Pennicott, and Spencer Murphy, and has recorded an official debut album with Steve Nielsen, Orlando LeFleming, and Bill Stewart in 2017 called Miki. She just recently wrote a 5-part suite entitled Human Dust Suite and recorded them in addition to other compositions, which was released in September 2020. Thank you, Miki. Welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Chloe Fedor is known for her lovely, plush, seductive tone, soulful, virtuosic playing, and impeccable technical control. A specialist in gut string historical performance, Chloe is a sought-after Baroque and Classical violin soloist, concertmaster, and chamber musician across North America. She's a member of Apollo's Fire and the concertmaster and curator of Baroque programming at the Lakes Area Music Festival. Thank you, Chloe. Welcome. And here we have Nicole. Nicole Duffel was classically trained from an early age on clarinet, alto, and tenor saxophones. After graduating from West Australian Conservatorium, majoring in jazz, Nicole started her professional career in blues and R&B bands. Tours with R&B bands continued internationally, but Nicole began to call Singapore home since 2002, eventually focusing more on jazz. And almost 10 years ago, Nicole started a long jazz residency at well-known whiskey venue, B28, eventually taking over and running the venue as a jazz club until 2017. And Nicole is known for her rich tenor sound, emotional depth, and inventive use of melodies. She's now a stalwart of the Southeast Asia jazz scene and continues her journey to dig deeper into the jazz tradition. Thank you for being with us here, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I do want to kind of take us back, to when in your childhood years or, during your school years, there are so many times when either our parents or older people around us tells us different things, right? Like, for example, you have to blah, blah, blah. You have to do this. Or if you don't do this, there's consequences in the path that you choose, right? So I was wondering, what was it like for you guys? Anyone can start off, and then we can just like pass the mic around, right? So what are some of the main things that are pretty impactful on you? Those you have to do this, or you have to, phrases that impacted you negatively and positively, either way. Yeah. Miki, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can do that. Well, I was doing classical piano like all the, it's a typical Asian family, like you're a girl, you got to go to like classical piano lessons, you do that. And I did that. I hated it. I never liked practicing or playing piano until like much later. So my mom was like, you have to practice. And I don't want to, I just don't want to, I can't. So that was you have to, I guess. But I didn't really hear her either. I just didn't practice, and I wasn't really good either. So I wasn't doing music seriously until I moved to New York, which was 10 years ago. So eventually I got into music, but my parents were just like forcing me, so I didn't want to do it. And that worked out pretty perfectly for them, because now they don't like the fact that I'm a musician. They don't really like that. So they don't believe me that I'm a working musician. So you forced me to do this though, That's my mom's fault. But yeah, okay, so I just start pretty weirdly, but yeah, that's my like childhood, that's how I started. So
yeah, you mentioned before you were doing, is it something completely different, right?
yeah, my major is
Before.
science, like earth science, like
Yeah.
earthquake and seismology and stuff like that. So I would have made much more money than right now if I kept doing it. Let me just say that. But yes, I'm glad I made this decision, that I moved to New York and I play music. I love it. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, yeah, just not a good start for me, but go ahead, girls, just go ahead.
Yeah. Chloe?
Well, I guess I'll jump in just because the whole theme of practicing similarly impacted me a little bit differently, because I didn't come from I didn't have parents that were really telling me what to do. I was raised for a long time by just my mom, and music was really a social thing. Like, go join this group violin class and you'll meet other kids and swish around your ponytail and have a good time. But there was a certain point where I became really sort of serious and very much into it. And I think I was later on told by teachers, like, you have to practice a certain amount to be successful. And for me, I really wanted to, but I've struggled with injury. That's been sort of a theme for me, was having not really, now I know my body a little bit better, scoliosis, hypermobility, all these things. But when I was young, it was just like, oh, that's probably not for you because you can't handle the stresses of what you're doing. So it was later on, probably high school, where I was like, oh, I really want to be a musician. I'm really passionate about it. And because I was looking at only a few examples in my hometown of people who are really successful, and they all did this thing, and they all seemed to be able to handle the rigors of playing more hours a day and all of that. So yeah, a different way, but also that feeling of like, this is the narrow path for which you must take to be a classical musician, and whether you really want it or don't want it, that was impactful. And I had to later on find out how to supplement my life with all these other things all the time in order to be able to maintain this sort of balance to be able to physically play, I guess. That's it.
For myself, I had very much hippie parents. I grew up very rural, and I'd picked up music pretty much by myself when my grandfather brought a clarinet, and he listened to a lot of big band jazz and everything, and they immediately paired me with a German classical teacher who used to rap my knuckles with a ruler. And I didn't have any, my parents were very much never involved. Like they let me do whatever I like, and therefore I climbed trees, rode horses, and played clarinet and saxophone. So and I was pretty much like looking at it now, I was self-motivated to do any exams or any of the grading that came through my high school music teachers. And they never really put pressure on me as far as you have to do this or have to do that. That to me came later in my life. By the time I got to university, I had, because I was a country kid, so my interaction with musicians on a professional level was really limited. And then, but I was quite self-driven. Like I did everything that I could get my hands on, all the classical exams. I knew I wanted to play jazz, or I grew up with my dad's vinyl collection, which was all like R&B and everything. So I just wanted to play any kind of music. And in Australia, during that time, like the 80s, was a huge boom in the music industry. Everybody was working. There was a lot of government money circulating in the industry, a lot of touring. There's quite a vibrant scene. So I'd sort of thought there was a good future if I decided to focus on music, because I also did a lot of art, which is what I'm doing a lot of right now. But it's
amazing.
Everybody thought I was going to be studying fine art, and so everybody was shocked when I said, actually, I want to study jazz, and I got an invitation to study. So it made it a lot easier for me to go down that path. And I didn't have any pressures put on me whatsoever. It was only when I hit university that I got hit with a lot more of the stereotypes, especially from, you know, in my day, the teachers, we were some of the first to go and get a degree in jazz performance in where I was. And so we were pretty much guinea pigs, I think. And the teachers were training or education. They were just musicians who came up through the industry. So I really think there was a gap there, because I had to deal with a lot of sexism and a lot of bullshit, basically. Sorry, can I say that?
Yeah, of course.
Please.
Of course. Yeah.
And it was to the extent where I hated it. I hated it, and it as soon as I could, it's funny because as soon as when I was a kid, I wanted to be a city person so that I could interact with other people studying music, and I couldn't wait to get out of home to move into the city. And once I did that, I was like, I wanted to leave the country, because I was thinking, this is not what I imagined in my head as far as how musicians should be treated and so on. And so as soon as I could, I kind of left. I toured with some R&B bands just to get out of the country, or just to be moving. And then, and yeah, so I sort of fought the stereotypes and the, you should do this, you should be that, along that path, like later on, because I'm sure we're going to get to. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, talking about stereotypes, you know, I think each of you, there's this like because what each of you, where you're at right now, you know, you guys have gone through so much. Like Miki, you were doing a completely different major before, right? So I do want to dig in a little bit more on those paths. And Chloe, you were like huge part of your life was just classical music. When did that moment change, you know, to get into, to specialize more into Baroque music? And for Nicole, you know, from the touring life, it's huge, right? I mean, we've talked about it in private. It's just so much, and how you got into, you know, running a jazz club eventually, you know, that That I would love. Yeah. You know, I was wondering what's, you know, these stereotypes that I guess you can say hate or stereotypes that you completely disagree with and you know hope for more people to see it from a different point of view. What was it for you guys? What bugs you the most with regards to stereotypes, to your genre, to what you're doing and your industry, I guess? Chloe?
Well, to move it into historical performance is a bit of an easy target for for at least within the musical community, or you know, people will just classical musicians, you pick up a Baroque bow and play gut strings and talk about different tuning temperaments, like, oh, you just can't play in tune, and oh, you must not know how to vibrate or sustain, and it's seen as failure is what's seen, or some people see as the driving force toward playing early music, when for some of us it's just this totally different sound world, and it's after years of trying to sound like certain recordings, it's like, well, here's just, it just feels great, and there's this whole other fresh perspective, and it's just sort of like a new place to start, and a new sort of color palette to play with, and new tools and expressive devices. But I guess when I was thinking about stereotypes, they're the ones that come sort of within the musical community, and in that case, like the stuff I mentioned, it's just up to me, I guess, to do what I do, and to play in a way that has integrity, and maybe there's always a way to check back in and say, okay, even though I'm just writing these people off as being not very nice and really closed-minded, and maybe, you know, fearful that we're going to criticize the way they play Bach or something, that, you know, am I challenging myself technically to or make sure my programming is as daring and pushing things out of the box as much as it can, since it's like I'm given sort of a narrow amount of you know, some hundreds of years to the span of the music that we're playing, and maybe that's a good challenge to undertake. But when you talked about, or when we were thinking about stereotypes, they're the ones that exist outside of the musical community, that are more like people who feel alienated by what we do, and especially like classical music, and that sort of rigidity. If there's something that's really repelling people or making them feel not included, then those are the types of stereotypes to actually really listen to, and say, like, well, if it's about like, oh, there's no diversity in the audience, well, then that's something that, like, we really need to take a hard look at. Why is that? Or if it's like too stuffy of an atmosphere, then in that case, yeah, like go on stage and say something disarming to the audience, or allow clapping. Just don't really care when people clap, or wear more casual clothing if it seems too rigid. So stereotypes, you know, they're the ones that are not really worth listening to, but they're also the ones where maybe if we meet people where they are, it can help grow the amount of people that are receptive to what it is we're trying to do, and what actually really speaks to us might end up really moving them. Yeah. That's all.
Nice.
Nicole?
I think for me, I'll never forget when a university professor said to me that I was asking questions beyond, like, I would work hard, and I knew nothing about jazz when I was studying it, and but I was working really hard, and everything they asked me to do, I would do, and then I would ask questions beyond the scope, or I guess, of what they're trying to teach, and because I was just trying to absorb everything, you know, and I had this one professor say, why are you even here? Like, in a couple of years, you're going to be married with 2 kids and you're never going to pick up a saxophone again. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And being a country kid, I was really, really shy. And that really hit me. And I was just like,
Damn.
I knew what he said was wrong, but I realized I actually put these pieces together quite recently, that where I grew up, there was a community of New Zealanders, a lot of Maoris that naturally play a lot of music within their own culture. And I'd gravitated towards these kids who all played music really, really well. And that's how I learned how to get into the blues and R&B thing. And I realized that they were welcoming because music alongside a sense of community was so inherent with them. And when I moved into the city to study, that wasn't there. That sense of community wasn't there. It became a competitive environment, which I was fine with, but I found it hard to learn from teachers who are a little bit misogynist. And so I kind of, being a shy kid at that time, I actually withdrew and I became quite intimidated. I wish that I was stronger looking back, but I just wasn't. And and I think by that time I was kind of looking for a place where there was a sense of community with the music. And I found that there was a couple of laid back professors. One was a great piano teacher called Don Gomez, who was Singaporean, funny enough, teaching out in Australia. And I mean, he gave me my first jazz gigs. And even though I didn't know what a 2-5-1 was, I didn't know how to play chords or anything, like I had no real knowledge. I was really still very much playing by ear. But so I kind of had this intimidation thing with the music, like I was a little bit fearful for a long time. So I felt comfortable just playing with the blues and R&B bands. And here you have another whole set of stereotypes coming into the picture, because being a blonde female saxophonist, often you get called up because you're a chick and nothing to do with your playing. So it took me a long time to find my crew, to find people who were actually serious about music. And then I ended up being a session musician and touring and working with a lot of horn sections. And that was my life, like within Australia. It took a year of study, and then I went back begrudgingly to finish my degree. And then I just remember thinking, I just got to get out of Australia. And so I lived in Europe for a little while, and then strangely ended up in Singapore by accident, and I've been here for 20 years. But so this is home. And I got here to face a couple of American musicians who, I remember one of them who is now one of my best friends in the world. But the first thing he said to me was like, "You're just using the fact that you're a female to get in and get all these gigs and stuff." And I'm like, what? And I didn't even plan on staying in Singapore at the time. And I got offered a residency at a jazz club, and I was thinking, wow, my first proper jazz residency, and this is a place where you've had Victor Gaskin and L.D. Young and all these great musicians play at. So I was excited, except that when I got the contract, they wanted me to be the chick, wear a dress, can you sing a little bit? And they wanted me to play what they called acid jazz at the time. So I was playing with this group from New York, and we were playing Isley Brothers tunes, and I was like, okay. So, and that's what some of the other musicians were accusing me of, like, oh, you're just coming in here wagging your ass around to get gigs, like type, just because you're a chick type thing. And I'm just like, this is never gonna get any better, isn't it? So so again I was still quite intimidated by the jazz crew, and what would have been really nice is if I had recognized any mentors at that stage in my life. And but as far as female tenor players going, I don't know a hell of a lot that are older than me. I know a lot of younger generations, but I could have done with a mentor back then. And I fought against everything as far as I refused to wear dresses on stage. I never would dress girly. I mean, I'm a country girl anyway, so so all the sexist, stereotypical stuff, I just I avoided. I sort of really put my foot down as far as not dressing the part. I'm not looking the part. And I began to draw a fine line between the gigs that I'm doing. Like there's a lot of corporate events where I'm being hired because I'm a female saxophone player, and I charge the hell out of the clients. So I have, those are the money making, rent paying gigs. And then I have stuff that I really want to do, which doesn't pay anything, but it's more where my heart is, you know. And so by the time I got to this whiskey bar situation, it was really, and which was about 12 years ago, it was really my first jazz gigs. And I had no idea what I was doing after however many years with all the R&B bands and stuff. So I'd by that time saved up enough money to pay my rent for a little while. And so I decided to quit all the R&B and the pop, anything that wasn't jazz. And I was just going to shed. And so I decided I was going to stay home for a whole year and just shed. And then this opportunity came up to play jazz at this whiskey bar. And so I sunk my teeth into it. And there was a lot of criticism from the local jazz community here because I'm not a jazz musician as far as they're concerned. And so I had to work hard to get above the crap that comes at you left, right, and center with a small jazz scene such as Singapore. And eventually the gigs that I was doing at this whiskey bar were becoming popular and successful. And then the owner of the bar decided to franchise it, and I took it over. I did a crash course in operations because it was inside of a hotel, so in the basement. So I took it over without having any F&B experience, and I just I had a lot of hard lessons to learn. And then in the whiskey industry, and I've grown up with whiskey, I know my whiskey, but I had to do a separate lot of training for that because I had to run whiskey tasting sessions and training people in whiskey as well as opening up my own jazz gigs to have all the other musicians come in and play and program it so that it becomes a jazz club. And then, because at the time I was the only group, I had an organ trio. And yeah, I don't think I've ever worked so hard in my life, but it grew to the point where it took over my life. And it's only been since COVID, the lockdowns, that I've actually been able to seriously pick up my horn again and practice. And so I really feel that I'm really a slow burner. Like I really took my practice like I was going back to school, and because when you're running F&B, it's a 24-hour job. It allowed I naturally gravitated towards community, which is what made me do this, is to run the jazz club, because I felt that's what was needed. And yeah, I think I've been talking a really long time, haven't I? But
No,
it
it's fine.
really created a good sense of community, which I think was needed. There was some other jazz clubs, but they were quite, I don't know, I didn't feel that sense of welcoming for anybody. Whereas with my club, I led in groups of students who were underage and plonked them in the corner where they could hear everybody play. And I brought out a lot of musicians from New York to perform. But yeah, it took over my life. Like I even though I played once a week only, but I never picked up my horn in between because I was exhausted. When we eventually closed the club, thankfully before COVID, because we were trying to find a new venue, basically, I was burnt out by then. I didn't realize it because I'd just been on this treadmill of keeping the business rolling. And when everything stopped, I was like, holy crap. I was, I ended up with a lot of health issues because I'd been on 3 hours sleep a night and everything. So moving on from there, I feel like I'm really only getting seriously back into music since COVID, and being able to think about what am I going to do at my age to move it forward in a new world where the amount of gigs and touring that we used to do is gone, and well, over here at least anyway. So I've really been working on my own playing, and I realized that you have to really ask yourself questions like, why are you doing this? And you really have to know yourself. And I feel like I'm sort of late to the party in regards to setting my own ideals and realizing my own self-worth as a musician. And I'm working my ass off as if I'm back in school now, just to push things forward. And yeah, I'm having to deal with live streams, which is a new thing because, in Singapore, all the regular clubs are still not allowed to have music after 2 years. And
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy.
yeah, and so I got a little side hustle going now because as a woodwind teacher, I was starting to teach after I sort of pulled out of the F&B industry, like most musicians will teach, and woodwind kept getting banned. Woodwind and vocalists kept getting banned from being able to teach in person at school because of the whole COVID thing. So I really struggled for the last couple of years, and then some live streams have popped up where a couple of companies are paying us to do that, which is really, really awesome. And I started a design company with my art, so that's become my bread and butter for now. And I just spread my time. I get up in the morning, I do that, and then I spend the rest of the afternoon practicing.
Great. Yeah.
But yeah, the stereotypical thing, I think, I don't want to blame it, but I really felt that it instilled enough intimidation in me that I could have moved forward at a younger age with my music career, and I just didn't. So I'm trying to make up for lost time now. Don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the common thread seems to be, that intimidation that we feel from these stereotypes is either gonna break or push you forward, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't see anybody in my own environment that was doing what I was doing, so I just I don't know. I think I pretty much held myself back by allowing myself to be intimidated and not being stronger as a character, because I've seen other female singers just bust through the whole stereotypical stuff. But yeah, I'm sort of doing it now.
Well, you're a trooper. It's
Yeah.
all of you are. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Miki?
Stereotypical thing. It's like, I think all the girls, just like ladies, just deal with the idea of like, oh, you should be doing like that, you should be married to have kids or whatever. That thing's like, oh, I thought it was just a story, and like I've never actually heard someone that was actually told. It's so ridiculous. It's hilarious to me, because what the fuck, like seriously.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So I hate that, and it's entertaining because I hate it so much. But anyway, I didn't really went through like, oh, like people told me that I used to be doing. Look, I actually was doing completely opposite. That I should be a scientist. I should have been doing what I was doing, and I quit it, and I decided to do music. So that was like, why people are like, not like, oh, you know, scientists are not a women, like females' job. They're like, musician is not a job. I was like, oh, cool, thanks. You know, just like that was my stereotypical shit that I had to deal with. And but that didn't really stop me, because I fucking love music. So that's why I moved here. I didn't know anyone. I didn't speak English. Like, why? Like, dude, Christina, you moved here. You did go to music school because you love the music, right? So stereotypical shit is like, we can use it. But then the thing is, though, like the Nicole was saying, like it took forever, and finally getting back to the shit, it's beautiful. I think it's fucking beautiful. I think everybody should have their own path, and like music's supposed to be enjoyed, in my opinion. So if that was hurting you, just stop doing it. It's cool, it's totally fine. But then if you feel like you can do it now, then do it. Like, I just like so I'm just so glad that you found your way to get back to it. It's beautiful. And I'm glad that you know, Chloe, you had the injury, and then but like you found a different voice of your instrument, and it's so beautiful. I get excited, but yes, I think stereotypical.
Yeah.
It's just like whatever, you know, you utilize it however you want, you know. That's how I think. So yeah, that was it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, onwards and upwards.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Then how about the times, you know, like when you do complete your studies, and then you know, the moment where you realize, oh crap, like my school didn't prepare me for what's to come, you know, in the real world. Like, for example, getting gigs, how and putting yourself out there, right? It's a little ironic, you know, like we're into music, and then it's all about sharing, performing, you know, expressing different parts of ourselves. But then sometimes the reality of like actually putting ourselves out there, it's a tough road to walk, I think, especially if, you know, you started off with a more introverted personality. How was that process like for you guys? Like the transition between getting out of school, you know, you have a music degree, how people view that, and then, you know, at what point of time in your career and your life that you stopped feeling controlled by all these fears, you know, that intimidation part, or it could be a push factor, right, in our lives that we keep moving forward. How is it for you, Chloe?
Like moving in a few different directions to like sift through all the stuff. Where should I start? Well, I as far as like fear being a driving force to push you or break you, it's still something I'm kind of dealing with, to be totally honest. And just because it's where my mind is, all instead of sort of going in order, I'll just say now I'm dealing with like long COVID health problems on top of my other health problems. And I was very busy before, but I'm in this freelance world where there's a lot of work is coming in, but there's that instability or that feeling like you could do a great job one night and then you turn around, you're in a new city with a new set of people, and it doesn't matter what you did before. And in terms of self-worth, it's like, well, this moment is, I'm not worth, if this moment I can't do my absolute best, like nothing that I did before matters, and it's a little bit jarring. But anyway, I guess I'd go back to, I thought of like my feeling after undergrad specifically. I think at a certain point I sort of reached a state of flow, which I'm grateful for, that my graduate studies, my teachers became my employers, and I felt sort of at one with the universe, and blah, blah, blah. Things were moving in a better direction, but I definitely didn't always feel that way. And at the end of undergrad, I remember just feeling fear for the unknown. I think Eastman was a very supportive, inclusive environment for the most part, and was a safety net. And I mean, I had good prospects. At a certain point, I found out Juilliard was an option, and even though I'd be much more in debt, I don't know, instead of being excited about going to a big new city with lots of opportunities and being really optimistic and driven by that, I was sort of, my thinking was driven by fear of, oh good, when you have no job in a few years and you have to move back to your hometown and you have to beg people to teach their children, they'll recognize the name of a school you went to, so it's worth all the student loans. Like you can, you'll make it work. It was just the total worst case scenario. I mean, it's great to move home and teach, and that's gratifying, but I wasn't viewing it in that light. It was like, I'm not going to be able to do that easily. I'll have to beg people, and that's the only option I'll have. And that's kind of sad in retrospect. So I think I was kind of intimidated for those types of changes. And I also, being injured and feeling like I can't, there was just a lot of, it was either real confidence or the face of confidence around me, but in this, there's a lot of drive, which can be really inspiring. But I also just knew that I couldn't even play that much in a day to have the same singular focus. So I was just sort of trying to be attuned to other options, and I got my Suzuki certification to be able to teach young children, and I didn't know how much of the future, like how much of my focus would be there eventually. And I got into historical performance because I don't know, I'm not a musician that comes from a lot of means or money and has a luxury, but somehow it was still the only thing I wanted to do. But then I'm injured, so it's kind of complicated, and I was guilty that my parents, invested, eventually my two parents invested a lot in my education and all of that. But so I just had to focus on the things that I really loved about music, and it was a certain energy in performance, and it was less about certain repertoire. And even though I was injured at the early music thing, I found that it felt a lot more ergonomic for my body and more organic, so that just sort of worked. And it's really hard to be a musician right now. A lot of people are putting their attention elsewhere, getting other jobs to supplement and or take the place of completely. So for me, I found I don't even know if I'm on topic anymore, but anyway, I found the things that were really meaningful to me. I found that moving in a slightly more niche direction allowed me to do all the things that I love to do and to have a certain energy. And I was very satisfied with this sort of music making and colleagues and the vibrant community around me, and eventually did reach that sort of state of flow. But there was fear at a certain point, and then there was an openness to not knowing exactly where things are going to land, and eventually I found it. However, that looks different for everybody.
I find a certain when you say like that openness of not knowing where things will land, I'm actually finding that to be the most comfortable situation for me. Like I feel so more at peace with that, and I don't know why. Maybe because it's rather than all the fear I had before, I honestly don't give a shit what anybody thinks. I'm just working on my own development as a musician, doing my own practice, and wherever the cards fall, they fall with this whole COVID thing, whether we will be able to gig again. But I'm willing to pack up and move countries if shit doesn't get rolling here. So even though this is home, but yeah, I'm making the most of every chance I get to play and every minute I have to practice. Like I really enjoy this space now, even though I've never been so broke in my life. Even when I was a student, I could still go and teach a bit or get paid gigs. Like here, we can't even do that. As a woodwind teacher, you can't even have steady teaching, and we can't play gigs. So I ran out of options basically to survive, and that was scary. But at the same time, I know what I want to do as far as developing my playing, and I feel really happy about being in this situation. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? But we have no idea. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing this time next year. Like no idea at all. And I'm fine with it. And I'm so much more focused on using this time to develop my playing. And all that fear and intimidation, all the stuff that I grew up with is gone. I don't have time for it anymore. So none of that is on topic either, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, now that you're doing all this like art and design as well, I mean, you guys should check it out on Instagram as well. The Artful Show,
The Artful
right?
Soul.
Full,
Yeah.
full with Fool. Artful
Yeah.
Soul.
I
Yeah,
was thinking I'm a fool to
amazing.
do another job where there's no steady income. But no, I had a background in art before I studied jazz and I was still in school. I was already working as a cartoonist for some publications from a young age, and it's just something that I've always done, I think. And I literally hadn't picked up a pen or pencil for 20 over years, and I just thought, well, I don't know what else to do. I really thought once I started running the jazz club, I really thought that was my life. I thought that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. And, I think there's a lot of jazz musicians or musicians in general out there who wish they could own a jazz club. Because even though my progress as a musician stopped completely, I had music on 24/7. I realized looking back now, I was doing a lot of listening. There's a lot of stuff that I absorbed just from listening to great music and listening to all the great musicians who come and played at the club. And I remember there's this really great pianist here, Chok Karung. And I remember I wanted to get harmony lessons. I wanted to look at ways that I could improve within that environment. So because I'd sit and practice at 4 or 5 in the morning when I shut the club. But at the time I didn't realize that when you're that exhausted, you just don't absorb much, you know, you're just doing. And I did it anyway. And so I got Karong would come in on a Tuesday night and I'd close the club early at like 12 or 1 a.m. and he would give me lessons. And looking back, I didn't absorb a lot of information back then. But I remember everything he taught me. I'm getting into my playing now. And so regardless of that, I'm really thankful for all that experience. I really thought that I had investors and I was lined up to get a bigger jazz venue, and I thought that that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life, and that my musicianship, my playing was something I was never going to be as brilliant as a lot of the players I looked up to, and I was willing to make that sacrifice because I wasn't going to put the time in, you know, that they could put in. But now the cards unexpectedly turned completely. And I think as a musician, you have to learn to think on your feet as far as just the whole unknown future when you finish your degree. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to finish a degree now. I would kill to be in New York in that situation, but out over here, I feel really sorry for some of the kids, you know. But yeah, I think I didn't think that I would be in this position where I would be seriously continuing a career as a jazz musician. I haven't even recorded anything or nothing yet. I've always just been into the live gigs thing, and I hadn't really been interested in recording anything, but now I'm actually writing and with a view to record at some point at the end of the year. And just despite the fact that we might not get a lot of gigs out here, I'm actually putting the effort into to have a career in music again. And so yeah, things took a really unexpected turn with the whole COVID thing. And if I graduated right now, if I was that age, I would get my ass, if I was in jazz, I'd get my ass to New York, somewhere where there was a bit more happening, which is a lot of risks involved, and you're going to be broke and you're going to struggle and be stressed the hell out. But that's life. No matter what industry we're in, that's modern life, you know. But so yeah. Anyways, what was the question?
No, I think you covered it all, you know, what we're getting at. Yeah.
Story in one.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, yeah. How about Miki?
The important thing about going to the music school is, like, people just, at least now, they expect that you will have a bright future of music. And I never thought like that when I entered Queens College. The whole reason why I went to Queens College was because I wanted to keep my visa in staying in New York. So I was like, it's the easiest way, find a school, let's go. And then my parents were like, we're not going to give you any money, but you're going to find a way. And I was like, so I had to move back one time and to make money. And then I showed them, look, like, I made this much money in short term, like, can you please, like, lend me some money to be able to go to the school? because it's the schools are so much more expensive in the States than Japan. Like it's more expensive than the private schools in Japan, that public schools here. So I was like, this is how much I need, and like I'm gonna pay you back. And I already paid them back. My tuition is already back to my parents, and because they really don't like that idea of their daughter to be a musician. So I was like, they still don't like it, which is okay. But all the things that I want to tell, like my students, I have some students that I tell them like, hey, this school that you're in right now and you're owing so much money for, they're not going to promise you shit. Like they're not going to give you anything. So if you want to, so what do you want to do? Just like when we start the whole semester of lesson, what do you want to do after graduating? And then some say, I want to be a recording musician, like studio musician in LA, or I want to go home and teach like in the local community. Beautiful. And I want to stay in New York and work as a musician. I was like, okay, cool. Let's focus on what we can do to achieve that goal, at least you were thinking of. And then if you want to work in New York City, then what do you need to work on? Let's learn tunes. Let's go to jam sessions and meet people. They're not like the schools, professors are not going to help your career at all, at least for jazz. Classical, I don't know, but I have some friends in Juilliard. I really wanted to go to Juilliard. The name sounded so nice, you know. I was like, oh, I can't because, you know, my bachelor's degree was science and they didn't take me. I didn't have the music, you know, then they didn't take me. It's okay, but I was like sad, super sad. Anyway, but I still made some friends there because I always wanted to go there. So like, therefore I like, oh, you go to Juilliard, tell me about your school. And then even like that amazing school, that was super well-known school, they don't even know what the hell they're going to do after graduating. So I think it's just a mindset of like, if I talk to younger musicians, just like think about like nobody's going to help you, but not in a bad way, just you can create your own thing. So even if the COVID happened, Nicole mentioned about the live streaming and stuff like that, but I started live streaming the show last year. And I've been doing that every week, like started with just the phone. And now like I made a little bit of money each week. And then I bought like interface and I learned how to set up the microphone to the piano and stuff like that. I never would think to do that before COVID. But now even in New York, just like there are fewer gigs. So I have to make myself to play with other people. How do I get my name out in the internet? Like my friend Emmett, it's like Emmett Cohen's like super well known because he super killed it with the streaming, and
I've been following his
so much high quality, and I've visited his stuff to learn what he does, but I don't have that kind of money. He is coming from money. Some people are luckily they're coming from money. Good for them. They can utilize that. Go ahead. If you have money, use it. But if you don't have money like me, be smart.
I'm the same.
So I think you can just, if you really love what you do, like just find a way to be able to do what you do. So that's kind of my experience. And, you know, my friends always like, I didn't know how hard this is to be out school, but yeah, I think it's just simply, if you want to play, go and find friends to play with, and then maybe that'll start. And in the meantime, you might have to work at a totally different industry. Like I couldn't eat for a long time for sure. Like I was working at this Chinese restaurant just to be able to eat some food. It was so shitty. So I think everybody has gone through those broke moments. And if you have money, go ahead. Just, man, don't worry. Use it.
Yeah. I would say, like, I see some graduating students now, and I see that some are a lot more academically minded than others. And I would say my advice would be to those who are enjoying academic life is to stay in it. Do your master's, do your PhD, stay in it, because
Sure.
those are your future employers right there. And then, but yeah, I wasn't like that. So my own experience was to get out and get on the gig circuit. But I wish that I had that guts that you have, Miki. I wish I had that at a younger age. Like, I wish that I could have, like a friend of mine, you might know, Troy Roberts, who's a tenor player.
My man.
Yeah.
Seriously. He lives right there, by the way. He always is with my husband.
Tell him I said hey.
Yo, what's up? Yeah.
He was a couple of years behind me at school and at the conservatorium, the same place. And yeah, and he went off to New York, and I was like, wow, like he's got a lot of guts. Like that the idea of it scared the hell out of me. But I wish that I did it. I wish I did it. But I was scared little chicken, too shy to even speak to anybody about the idea. But yeah, I'll get over there one day. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with my jazz club. I spent a lot of time watching the Smalls feeds. There's another friend of mine, Nick
Hampton?
Yeah.
My man as well.
Yeah. You got some good Aussies over there.
Good Aussies.
And yeah, he'd mentioned that Smalls had a little live cam thing going on way before COVID.
It's like a security camera though.
Yes, yeah, but it's awesome. So I was able
to hear
really
music, so you know, Spike knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So I have never met Spike, but everybody called me the Spike of Singapore.
Good. Be it.
Well, I was for a little while, but not anymore. So, but yeah, I looked at that whole streaming thing as far as the technology available, and I actually thought, wow, I could be doing this, because B28 was a really small club as well, and I was thinking how to grow it, and I was thinking, wow, the Smalls is really setting an international mark, as small as it is, you know. So
it is small.
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting to be able to watch the live gigs streaming from there. It was exciting, like I felt like I was part of something bigger, you know. Anyway, so yeah, I've only just recently started with the live stream thing. We had because yeah, I struggled financially. I didn't have the money to set up any cameras and microphones, but I did have my jazz club full of equipment. I have a huge amount of, I've got a beautiful piano and a lot of gear and amps there, and I was just thinking, so more recently I've been trying to think, like, how can I like maybe start a bit of a Kickstarter campaign or something, I don't know, because yeah, I was following Emmett's live stream things as well, and I was thinking, wow, this might be what we need to jump onto now, you know, for at least for a little while. You have to take it seriously. If you I don't know, if you need to have an umbrella of stuff to create income streams and so on, you know, to learn technology.
I have a question. It's a Chloe. Because I don't know much about the classical. Well, you can answer too, Christina, but because both of y'all play classical, right? Like, do classical people stream too? Like I only follow the jazz scenes.
Yeah, same, yeah.
Close-minded, but like, do you like host a concert, or like have you done like anything, and how did you feel about doing live streaming concert as a classical player?
I felt terrible and really intimidated, and there was definitely
it's weird
learning curve. There early lockdown for months, I put on a lot of live stream. I was with my partner cellist, so we put on some duo recitals with very low tech endeavors, and all the concerts start, you're kind of trying to move the camera around and don't know when it's on. It's just and I think it was sweet, and the community was trying to support each other and watch each other's concerts, and then we all just got really burnt out. I think it was
true.
It's and it's mostly, it's like donations. You feel bad. It's like other musicians donating, and then we donate back, and then the other person has a concert, like, here's the $7 that you gave me, like, nice effort, but and it was so a little bit soul crushing.
Right.
My own trajectory, some work, I think, with maybe the benefit of Baroque early music groups, the ensembles are a little smaller, so I'm not part of a symphony orchestra, and some of them have taken longer to bounce back, or some have utilized the whole video thing really, really well. It just depends. But I had enough work. I had COVID. I was out of incapacitated for a while anyway, and then some gigs for me came up, small enough groups that were able to test daily and all of that. So I personally needed to rely less. I may have to revisit now with Omicron and things shutting down, and I'm back in Canada now where it's more shut down. But most of my work has been some on the West Coast, some sort of scattered throughout the US. And actually for me, New York was slower to pick back up for whatever reason. But it, may have to revisit. I never really got the knack. I never got really nice equipment or figured out how to use it. This is sort of low budget myself operation. It was freezing when we were doing our testing, my internet connection. But yes, I'm just so impressed, and I have so much respect, and I understand the struggle you guys have to put on these concerts. And I think it's amazing to keep up the momentum to play to seemingly an empty room. Live streaming is one thing. And I also experienced burnout with some groups. If I wasn't in charge of the recording, like there was a year where there's a big budget operation of like, really, okay, let's see the silver lining of having, this group that's in Minnesota or somewhere. It's like, now the world can see what we do here and take it as a positive opportunity. And then, we sort of thought this would be over, and then the quality sort of sagged a little bit. And it's like, well, let's just hire someone local, cheaper, throw it out. And then I'm, there with like a much less flattering recording out there, just because it's hard to keep up the momentum. So I really applaud you guys, and am really impressed, because it is not easy to maintain your own sort of motivation for replacing, especially the energy you would get from a vibrant jazz club, and to
exactly.
But like what I was like curious about was like jazz is like more like social, like people be talking all the time. That's kind of part of the vibe too. But in the classical concert that I've at least attended before was like very quiet, and then my classical friends, like the people who went to Queen's College with me, always told me that they rehearse all the time and they rehearse in the room. So I was like, do you feel the need of audience like we do? Like, what do you like? How do you like feel? That's why I was like, I wanted to ask both of you, Chloe and Christina, but jazz just needs this loudness, Just
you need to feel the air move. You need to feel the air move, and you need to me, an audience is sustaining for us. It's sustenance. Like definitely missing that type of vibe. But I mean, I've personally had a lot of very recent hard lessons with the live stream thing, because I'm still getting used to it. But like, you have to overcome certain obstacles as far as like there are a lot of musicians who are scared to speak into a microphone and address an audience that's not there. And I got to the point where I don't care. I just do it. I don't plan anything. I just learned a long time ago that you really just have to be yourself and let it rip. So but my knees were literally shaking for the first couple of live streams because I don't know who's watching, and half of me is thinking this is being recorded and, you know, oh my God, this is permanent. You know, like jazz is very much so in the moment that, you know, whatever happens, you already moved on to the next thing. So with the live stream, I'm just like horrified if I've screwed something up and that's there forever for everybody to see with a magnifying glass. That was a little scary. And then last week we had a session where the studio was double booked and we had 2 bands back to back. And the band before me were absolutely kick-ass young musicians, and who inspire the heck out of me. So they came into the studio earlier to watch they watched my rehearsal, right? Because we didn't rehearse. It was like a sound check / rehearsal. And then we just ran into stuff. And then I had a guest sax player from Thailand sitting in, and there was a lot of things at play. And my head, I had to think of so many things as a band leader. You think of so many things at the same time, trying to get on the spot arrangements and shit. So I was just like flustered for a little minute. And at some point during my live stream, I called off a song. I think I just called it too fast, and I missed the intro. and literally, I was like, how am I going to save my ass for this? And I turned around and the drummer stopped and restarted the song, and I was going, embarrassment central. Was like, oh my God. And then I've just accepted these things are just going to happen, you know. And like I just realized, just focus on the music and forget about everything else. But it was really nice to have all the other guys from the other band in the room cheering us on. It made such a massive difference just having 4 other beings in the room, you know, watching.
Agreed.
It was awesome. So it was probably the most mistakes ever made, but the most fun with each other's streams. It was and so I use that as how do you say, like a landmark. And I realized maybe we should do back-to-back streams with other bands a little more often, just to have that
Human connection.
And have a mini audience there by default. But actually I watched the Resound, I don't know, Christina, if you caught the Resound concert. So there was a concert by Jeremy Montero, a great jazz pianist, with a couple of his jazz musicians, and then a small string orchestra. Right? So they did arrangements by some jazz and classical composers, and then they streamed it. So they had an audience, and then they streamed it. I can't remember how many people are involved, like at least 30 or something, right? But I thought it was absolutely inspiring. It was really incredible, the amount of work involved in that. And then there were lags in the live stream. They had technical problems, but it was so inspiring to see these projects go ahead at an amazing level of musicianship. I was really inspired by that, and it made me think, well, you know, there's still a lot possible given the circumstances with COVID right now. Just got to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I think the main thing, you know, like whether it's pre-COVID or post-COVID, because COVID just resets everyone on the same page in some ways, right? Like how you guys are taking on your life one step at a time, moving forward, like, you know, learning new things, how to set up. And if you don't have money, then you do the way that works without having any money, but still, you know, like Miki said it so like energetically. You just love music and you just do it regardless. Like I think all of you guys are at the same headspace where your heart is at, and you just do it regardless whether it's COVID or anything that comes along. So, and I think that, you know, is something that any, be it students or younger musicians or anyone who's facing all this like cages around us, right? That we trap ourselves in, or even give ourselves like excuses to not do something, you know, just because it's a little harder or like impossible to reach. I think what you guys have is really, you know, that crazy resilient and that love for what you do. And it seems like regardless of what you've went through, you know, just continue to shape your identity and your voice, I guess, moving forward. That's extremely inspiring. Because I mean, Nicole, you shared, you know, some part you're at a sort of like a transition, figuring out more things in your life right now, and that's super exciting, I think.
Yeah, I seriously thought that my life would be a little less as a musician and more as a jazz club, like encouraging the younger musicians. I really thought that was going to be my life. That was literally set in stone. That was what I was going to be doing, and letting go of that big dream, which I was actually living, like I was achieving, was tough. I think I was walking around quite angry for the first year of COVID, and quite angry, and you know, you can tell yourself any excuse in the world, but at the end of the day, I think as a musician, it's innate, that the drive to continue under any circumstances, and I'm really, really happy for the way things have turned out. I've never been so broke in my life. I've never struggled so hard, but I've not been this happy for a long time. I think for at least 15 years, you know. So, so the circumstances aside, I think the one thing I've learned is that I'm not going to quit, regardless. You know, I think I've got a lot to learn, and so I'm just getting on with that.
And I think there's really too much to learn from, like Miki, you're mentioning whether, you know, classical musicians are freaking out about live streams and all this stuff. I'm sure, but there's so much, like there's different genres, you know, industries that we're in, that we can all learn and reframe the way we look at our own industries. That it's just gonna bring more light into your life, I think. No.
I think it forces us to really face who we are as musicians, as far as, like you said, you're defining your own identity, because in this situation, regardless of classical or jazz, you're not really being called to do works like within an orchestra or anything. You have to kind of forge your own path a little stronger under these circumstances, and well, certainly over here anyway. So I think using the downtime, well, I consider it a little bit of downtime right now, to develop your skills and perhaps formulate an idea of where you would like to be as a musician in a couple of years' time, and just set yourself some small goals to work towards whether it be forming a group or writing arrangements, composition, or making the live stream something sustainable, like whatever the goals are, you just use this time to learn and learn and learn and develop, upgrade skills and so on.
Yeah. So we're almost at the end of our chat. Do we have any questions from Kenyin or Kenneth? Feel free to unmute yourself and chat. Probably one question before we wrap up. Any? Or Erin?
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Or any from you guys for each other. No?
I look forward to seeing you guys play.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of this very, very insightful fireside chat, and really thank you girls for for sharing everything. It's really humbling and touching, to hear how you guys have tread through all this annoying stereotypes and just roadblocks along the way. And I think the most beautiful thing is, regardless of what happens, you guys know clearly where your heart is, and that's enough. Sometimes we just need that to keep us going in all kinds of directions, whatever that direction is. Yeah. So thank you for that. Thank you. And I hope we can get to meet in person one day soon when this whole thing blows over. So welcome to Singapore, and we'll if we're in Toronto or US, we'll be in touch for sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
to meet you guys this way.
Great to meet you guys.